Dickens, a true fan of this institution. To Reverend Al Sharpton and Reverend Calvin Butts, and to so many others, welcome again. Now, I can't help but point out that the last time there was a major presidential campaign address in Harlem was when President Obama spoke at the Apollo in January of 2012. You might recall that he sang a little Al Green to warm up the audience. And I'm just wondering if perhaps Secretary Clinton will maybe recite a little Maya Angelou. I know that they were dear friends. Indeed, the last time Secretary Clinton spoke at something Schomburg helped to organize was at Maya Angelou's memorial tribute. As home to her papers, as caretakers of Maya Angelou's legacy, I can't help but remark upon how important this institution is to helping all of us to remember the courage, the sacrifice, the commitment of our most cherished freedom fighters and lovers of democracy and equality, of which Maya Angelou was one among many. This is the 90th year of celebrating Black history annually. That deserves an applause. And the 90th year anniversary of this institution. You see, this institution, where you sit today, is the infrastructure upon which the idea of a Black public sphere and a Black civil society could grow and blossom. This institution was built 4 decades before there was an African American studies at our nation's leading colleges and universities. The explosion of Black arts and letters during the Harlem Renaissance happened right here in the 1920s as Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, and the founding curator, Arturo Alfonso Schomburg, explored in books and art, poetry, and prose the multiplicity of Black expression and humanity. Right here, Ella Baker, the future NAACP organizer, SCLC leader, and SNCC godmother, taught a young Jacob Lawrence in a history club, empowering him with ideas that would take shape in the Great Migration series, and so many others. Right here, Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte, Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis honed their acting skills in the American Negro Theater, founded in the basement of this library. Right here, Kenneth and Mamie Clark turned to our resources to help them make the case that segregated education was inferior education. And so Brown was born. No wonder we are home to their papers too. The stories go on and on, from the past to the present and to the future, as new history makers make new deposits, tell new stories, sing new songs on this stage. For that reason, we know our work must go on and are proud to have received from First Lady Michelle Obama the Institute for Museum and Library Services National Medal last year. This is the nation's highest honor awarded to libraries. Maya Angelou believed deeply in libraries. She called them rainbows in the clouds because in her hometown of Stamps, Arkansas, a local library literally helped her to speak again. And the world has been all the better for it. Finally, in recognition of the more than 300,000 people who walk through our doors every year for research, for public conversations, for concerts, for exhibitions, for educational programs, the Schomburg Center and the New York Public Library, along with its 90 branches system-wide, are grateful to all who sustain our mission, support our work, and believe in the power of libraries and cultural institutions to make a difference in everyone's life. Thank you. And at this time, thank you for being here to support the public sphere of debate about the future of this country.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Congressman Charlie Rangel and Hillary Clinton.
of course, that all of you will make some type of a mental note on this occasion. I'm 86 years old, and 86 years ago, I was born right down the block on 32nd Street. Years later, along came Eric Holder, uptown on 46th and 8th Avenue. And we are now here where all of our history, all of our dreams have been put together so that generations to follow would know not only what has happened in the past, but what little bit we have played in moving forward. It's an emotional experience because when slaves come to a continent, they dropped off all over to the Mexico, the United States, South America. You almost get a sense that, Reverend Sharpton, that we've made it when someone who looks like that slave becomes the President of the United States and the leader of the free world. When you have mayors that look like you, judges that look like you. And then you see what's happening today, when we're almost there and we feel emotionally that we're there. And you find a handful of people trying to tear down our entire country. Not caring. Now, instead of thinking about jobs and health care and hope and dreams, we have to wonder whether or not they're going to tear apart the Supreme Court. Whether they're going to tear down the president before his term ends. It's been brought to my attention that some people have been following the Secretary of State around to disrupt rather than to instruct. Please be informed, you are in the village of Harlem. Traveled so hard and so long to get to where we are now. But we know that we got so far to go. And so the words that you hear are not political words, these are moral words. And it just doesn't involve us, it involves our great country. And we're not going to allow anybody to tear down this country. This is our investment. And so here we find somebody that we took to the dance. She was there working for little children in white schools, made up their minds that notwithstanding the law, that they weren't going to get in these schools. She was there checking out the human rights of kids, working for the Children's Defense Funds. She wasn't invited. She felt in her heart it was the right thing to do. She was there when she met this young fella from Arkansas. I don't know what they do in Arkansas. But over the years, I kind of felt she thought that he could be governor, he could be president, and that he could make the way for her to lead, because there was a glass ceiling at that time for women to think about becoming president. For all the years that I served in the Congress, and John Lewis and so many that struggled before me, they didn't have to look for the Clintons or to find out whether they were progressive. They were partners. They were there. And just as an aside, and I hope the press doesn't report this, please. But when you and I know we had a fear that a man named Giuliani was going to become our United States Senator, we were so close in this state to panic, we didn't know what to do. And then we heard the bugles blowing, and it said the cavalry was on the way. And along came Secretary Hillary Clinton. And she opened up a new way for Empire State to once again become that state that we all love and cherish. And so now we have everything that we need to move forward. We have a great governor that comes from a great governor. We have a mayor that any of those who used to be called reformers, he wrote progressive, so we don't have to explain to anybody who we are.
Put my jacket up on there.
And I tell
that thing
you,
right there.
my wife says that, Charlie, no matter how much you learn and whatnot, you still come from the street. And I'm telling you, when Eric Holder comes before the United States Congress as Attorney General, we not only have an eloquent spokesman, but there's a little piece of the street there. Secretary, we needed you when you volunteered to help us out before the Civil Rights Movement. We sure needed you to guide our great President Bill Clinton to improve the economy. We needed you when you challenged Obama. We loved Obama. And we found out you loved him too, as you served as Secretary of State. And now, it seems as though not only the world is being torn apart, but it seems as though there are people that want to tear apart our great nation. Remember today, because in my opinion, this is a day where we all will be able to tell our kids and our grandkids, we were there when she turned it around. Please welcome the former Secretary of State, the First Lady, our great senator, a decent, progressive human being, Hillary Rodham.
Go home right now. Thank you so much, Charlie. Thanks for your friendship. Thanks for your leadership. The Congress will miss you when you leave its ranks, but I have a feeling that you're going to be spending a lot of time right here in Harlem. You know, Charlie didn't tell you the whole story. He was actually the person who called to encourage me to run for the Senate. And he basically said that I had no choice. But it took me a long time before I realized he was right. And he's been a great friend and partner since then. I want to tell you how special it is for me to be back here in Harlem to make this set of comments. I loved representing New York for 8 years. And Harlem looms large in the American imagination as the birthplace of so much art and culture and such vibrant public life. There's really no place like it in the world. I appreciate being joined by the governor and Sandra, by the mayor and Shalane, by the former Attorney General, Eric Holder, Representative Yvette Clark and Representative Nydia Velasquez, our Council Speaker, Melissa Mark-Vivaretto, Public Advocate Letitia James. I want to thank Dr. Khalil Gibran Muhammad, and to all of the New York State Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian Caucus members and members of the New York City Council, the Black, Latino, and Asian Caucus. I thank you all so much for being here. And pick up on what I just said about Harlem, because Harlem and many other communities across America remind us that any view of Black America that focuses exclusively on crime, poverty, or other challenges is missing so much. Missing the strength and the pride and the achievement that is evident on every street here. That narrative is missing the remarkable rise of the African American middle class, the rise of African Americans to leadership in all walks of life, in business, law, politics, science, the arts, sports, and all the professions. It's missing the vibrancy of the Black church, the passionate advocacy of the next generation of change makers, and the service of leaders at every level who never tire of holy water. Telling those in authority, there's something wrong with this water. My baby has a rash. I feel funny when I drink it or take a bath. And being told there's nothing wrong with the water. Just go away. Flint is not alone. There are many Flints across our country. Places where people of color and the poor have been left out and left behind. Now, in the contest for the Democratic nomination, we've spent a lot of time debating about the big banks and the excesses of Wall Street. And these are important issues. And I'm absolutely committed to ensuring that no bank is too big to fail and no executive too powerful to jail. But Flint reminds us my friends, there's a lot more going on in our country that we should be concerned about. The truth is, we aren't a single issue country. We face a complex set of economic, social, and political challenges. They are intersectional, they're reinforcing, and we've got to take them all on. So it's not enough for your economic plan to be break up the banks. You also need a serious plan to create jobs, especially in places where unemployment remains stubbornly high. You need a plan to address the generations of underinvestment and neglect. Now, even if we succeed in raising taxes on every millionaire and billionaire in America, and believe me, I do intend to succeed at that, we still need to face the painful reality that African Americans are nearly 3 times as likely as whites to be denied a mortgage. Something's wrong when the median wealth for black families is just a tiny fraction of the median wealth of white families. And when gun violence is by far the leading cause of death for young African American men, outstripping the next 9 causes of death combined, there is something deeply wrong. Something's wrong when African American men are far more likely to be stopped and searched by police, charged with crimes, and sentenced to longer prison terms than white men convicted of the same offenses. And when black kids get arrested for petty crimes, but white CEOs get away with fleecing our entire country, there is something wrong. Just imagine with me for a minute. Imagine if white kids were 500% more likely to die from asthma than black kids. 500%. Imagine if a white baby in South Carolina were twice as likely to die before her first birthday than an African American baby. Imagine the outcry. Imagine the resources that would flood in. Now, these inequities are wrong, but they're also immoral. And it'll be the mission of my presidency to bring them to an end. have to begin by facing up to the reality of systemic racism. Because these are not only problems of economic inequality, these are problems of racial inequality. And we've got to say that loudly and clearly. Now, I don't by any means intend to imply that we're not still making progress. We do have a lot to celebrate, as Congressman Rainey said, and the people in this room know that. You have helped to make it happen. And there is no better example of that progression than our president. And for all the partisan resistance President Obama has faced every day, remember and celebrate. He brought our economy back from the brink of another great depression. On his watch, 14 million jobs have been created. Healthcare has been brought to 18 million people. The auto industry was saved, and so much else. Now, he would be the first to say, as we've heard him say, that despite our best efforts and our highest hopes, America's long struggle with race is far from finished. For many white Americans, it's tempting to believe that bigotry is largely behind us. That would leave us with a lot less work, wouldn't it? But more than half a century after Rosa Parks sat, and Dr. King marched, and John Lewis bled, race still plays a significant role in determining who gets ahead in America and who gets left behind. Now, anyone asking for your vote has a responsibility to grapple with this reality. To see things as they actually are, not just as we want them to be. I'd be the first to admit, I don't have all the answers. I've made my own mistakes, I've walked my own journey, but I believe with all my heart we can and must do better. We've made progress before, which gives me hope we can do it again. In the 1990s, economic programs like the New Market Tax Credit, the Earned Income Tax Credit, and empowerment zones like the one right here in Harlem made a real difference in people's lives. They helped to create the highest increase in black incomes and the lowest black unemployment in history. We achieved record small business lending to minority-owned businesses and record bank lending in minority communities. Right here in Harlem, the unemployment rate dropped by 2/3, and we saw a drop in child poverty and an increase in employment and income for single mothers too. We also learned about what doesn't work. Some of what we tried didn't resolve problems. Some ended up creating new ones. And that caused disappointment, frustration, even anger. So as we face today's challenges, we have to bring all those lessons to bear. Here's the bottom line, as I see it. When we make direct, strategic investments in communities that have been left behind, and when we guarantee justice and dignity to every American, then we really can make progress, lasting progress, progress that will catapult us into the future. We can reduce poverty. We can build ladders of opportunity. So I'm proposing a comprehensive new commitment to equity and opportunity for African American communities. That means a real plan to create jobs. If I'm elected president, we will direct hundreds of billions of dollars in new investments to places like Harlem and rural South Carolina. Including $20 billion aimed specifically at creating jobs for young people. The unemployment rate among young African Americans is twice as high as for young white people. Now we need to get young people working, developing their skills, unlocking the full extent of the contributions they can make to themselves, their families, and our country. We need to make sure we're not only creating good jobs, but connecting Black communities to where the good jobs are. So we've got to be strategic about our investments in transit and infrastructure. And we need a real plan, including expanding access to capital to support Black entrepreneurs, especially Black women who represent the fastest growing segment of women-owned businesses in America. And while we're at it, let's finally ensure equal pay for equal work for women. That would benefit women of color most of all and would lift up an awful lot of families. And let's go even further. Let's follow Governor Cuomo's lead and raise the minimum wage to help people get out of poverty. Now we need to support African American home ownership, which has always been one of the surest ways for Black families to build wealth. That's why I have a plan that would, among other things, help African American families save for a down payment. We need to make sure every family also has access to quality preschool. And I applaud Mayor de Blasio for what he's achieved here in New York with his program. And please, help us reverse the dangerous slide toward resegregation in our schools. Our schools are now more segregated than they were in 1968. That is appalling. And we've got to fix it. We also have to make sure everyone who wants to go to college can afford to. And everyone with student debt can have that debt refinanced and take thousands of dollars off the burden that they are carrying. Let's give tax credits to businesses that actually invest in training and in apprenticeship programs to help young people who don't go for a 2 or 4 year degree. And my plan gives special support to historically Black colleges and universities. The HBCUs have produced some of the finest leaders in our country. And it's not just who they graduated in the past, it's the work they're still doing today, often against great odds. And then finally, and so importantly, we need end-to-end reform in our criminal justice system. Not half measures, but a full commitment with real follow-through. Now this is something we could talk about for hours. In fact, I gave my first speech of this campaign in April, not far from here, and it was about reforming criminal justice. Because the inequities that persist in our justice system undermine our shared vision of what America can and should be. Our legal system is still, all too often, stacked against those who have the least power, who are the most vulnerable. And we've seen the toll it takes on families torn apart by excessive incarceration, and children growing up in homes shattered by prison and poverty. We've got to get back to that fundamental principle that everyone in every community benefits when there is respect for the law and when everyone is respected by the law. That is the formula for building trust and cooperation, and we need to not only acknowledge but fix the crisis of mass incarceration. Let's finally, once and for all, eliminate the remaining disparity in sentencing between crack and powder cocaine. Let's rebuild the bonds of trust between law enforcement and communities by creating more opportunities for people to actually interact with one another, to build relationships. Let's end the epidemic of African Americans being killed by police or dying in custody. I think you know, because I sure believe, there are many police officers out there every day, inspiring trust and confidence, putting themselves on the line to save lives. So let's learn from those who are doing it right and apply those lessons across the country. Let's make sure the Justice Department has the resources to hold departments like Ferguson's accountable when they do it wrong. Again and again, something terrible happens and no one is held accountable. A deeply troubling pattern, and we've got to break it. We've also got to do a much better job of helping people who have paid their debt to society find jobs and support when they get out. Up to 60% of prisoners who re-enter society face long-term unemployment. That's a recipe for hopelessness and repeat offending. My jobs plan would make significant investments in re-entry programs for the formerly incarcerated. You know, in my faith, we believe in second chances. In America, we believe in second chances. Let's give those chances to people who need our help the most. Let's give them a fair shot, which is also why I will ban the box in the federal government. And I want to thank Attorney General Holder, who has been really in the forefront of making so many of these changes happen. And I also want to thank another great New Yorker, Attorney General Loretta Lynch, who is continuing and let's roll up our sleeves and get to work to dismantle the school-to-prison pipeline. It's diverting too many African-American kids into the criminal justice system instead of giving them the education they deserve. We've seen a significant increase in police involvement in school discipline, especially in schools with majority black students. We're seeing an over-reliance on suspensions and expulsions. I'm sure many of us remember that horrifying video of the girl in South Carolina being thrown out of her desk and dragged across her classroom by a school police officer. A classroom should be a safe place for our children. We shouldn't even have to say that, I don't think. So today I'm announcing my plan to end the school-to-prison pipeline. It includes major investments in school districts that reform their discipline practices. We want districts to know if they do the right thing, we'll have their backs. And we will dramatically expand support for guidance counselors, school psychologists, and social workers. So instead of just labeling kids problem students, they can actually help kids with their problems and keep them in school. And for schools that refuse to reform, And states that refuse to take this issue seriously, I want the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights to intervene. Because this is not just an education issue, this is a civil rights issue, and we cannot ignore it any longer. We need to be sending our kids to college. We need a cradle to college pipeline. Not sending them into court and into prison. There's much more to do. If you go to my website, HillaryClinton.com, you can read our full agenda. You know, sometimes people make fun of me because I actually tell you what I want to do as president. To help inform voters so that you can make a good decision. But I want to mention one more critical area, protecting that most fundamental of rights, the right to vote. Across our country, Republican governors and legislatures are erecting one barrier after another that make it harder for black people to vote. It's a blast from the Jim Crow past, and we need to call it for what it is. And in the past few days, the stakes got even higher. Justice Scalia's passing means the court hangs in the balance. Now, the Republicans say they'll reject anyone President Obama nominates, no matter how qualified. Some are even saying he doesn't have the right to nominate anyone, as if somehow he's not the real president. In keeping what we've heard all along, isn't it? Many Republicans talk in coded racial language about takers and losers. They demonize President Obama and encourage the ugliest impulses of the paranoid fringe. This kind of hatred and bigotry has no place in our politics or our country. Has the right to nominate under the Constitution, and the Senate has the obligation to process that nomination. And I hope the Senate will start paying more attention to statesmanship than partisanship. And I hope that they will understand that we can have our differences, but let's not go right after the fundamental rules of how we govern ourselves. That's a bridge way too far, my friends. Now, I will appoint Supreme Court justices who will see the Constitution as a blueprint for progress, not as an excuse to try to roll back decisions going all the way back to Teddy Roosevelt, which is apparently what some of them would prefer to do. Now, I suppose some people will hear what I'm proposing and think, well, she's saying this because she's in an election. But many of you in this audience know me, and you know that these issues have always been part of my North Star. In my first semester at law school, a woman named Marian Wright Edelman came to speak on campus at Yale. She was the first African-American woman admitted to the Mississippi Bar, a lawyer for the NAACP in Jackson, a friend of Dr. King before he was murdered, altogether a remarkable person. She talked about starting a Head Start program in Mississippi and using her legal education on behalf of poor children who were invisible to the rest of the country. Something clicked in my brain that day. Until I heard Marian speak, it wasn't clear to me how best to channel my faith and commitment to social justice to try to make a real difference in the world. But she put me on the path of service. I went to work for her at the Children's Defense Fund. She sent me to her home state of South Carolina, to take on the problem of black teenagers who were being incarcerated along with adults. And when I look back, everything else I've done, whether it was going undercover to Alabama to expose segregated academies and try to strip them of their tax exemptions, or running a legal clinic at the University of Arkansas to represent inmates. Excuse me. Too much to say. That's been. Thank you. That's been part of my mission. Representing poor people through the Legal Services Corporation. It was about making people's lives better. And it taught me that even if you're young, you don't have a powerful job, if you work at it, you stick with it, you can make a difference. Amen chorus. You know, to quote Dr. King, the time is always ripe to do right. And who you are. And when I had the great privilege of representing New York, I worked with members of our congressional delegation. We fought to bring investments and jobs to neighborhoods that needed them, to improve health care, to get cleaner air and water for low-income communities. One of the highlights was partnering with the organization 100 Black Men.
Yes, sir!
To create the Eagle Academy. It's grown to 6 schools now in New York, taking young African American and Latino men. There was always something to be done, and I had so many partners here in New York. We championed reforms of probation and drug diversion programs. We promoted specialized drug courts and juvenile programs, coming full circle with the work that I had done for Marion. So when I decided to run for president, I knew these issues had to be at the heart of my campaign. That's where they've always been. That's where they will always be. And I want to add something else. We Democrats have a special obligation. If we're serious about our commitment to the poor, to those who need some help, including African Americans, if we continue to ask Black people to vote for us, we cannot minimize the realities of the lives they lead or take their concerns for granted. just show up at election time and say the right things and think that's enough. We can't start building relationships a few weeks before a vote. To building opportunity, creating prosperity, and righting wrongs. Not just every 2 or 4 years, not just when the cameras are on and people are watching, but every single day. So here's what I ask of you. Hold me accountable. Hold every candidate accountable. What we say matters, but what we do matters more. And you deserve leaders who will do whatever it takes to tear down all the barriers holding you back, and then replace them with those ladders of opportunity that every American deserves to have. I'm also asking all Americans to join in that effort. As Cornell Brooks, the new head of the NAACP, said in our meeting this morning, none of this is a they problem, it's a we problem. And all of us have to admit that. And you know what? It is not an urban problem, it's an American problem. Ending systemic racism requires contributions from all of us, especially those of us who haven't experienced it ourselves. White Americans need to do a better job of listening when African Americans talk about the seen and unseen barriers that you face every day. We need to recognize our privilege and practice humility rather than assume that our experiences are everyone's experiences. All of us need to bring our skills to bear, and especially young people coming up today who have a passion for social justice and are helping to create new ways to solve intractable problems. And we all need to try as best we can to walk in one another's shoes, to imagine what it would be like to sit our son or daughter down and have the talk. Or if people followed us around stores or locked their car doors when we walked past. That kind of empathy is critical. It's what makes it possible for people from every background, every race, every religion to come together in this great city and to come together as one nation. It's what makes a country like America endure. You know, I started my remarks by talking about Flint. I'm going to keep talking about Flint until the families there get the help they need for as long as it takes. There's another side to the story of this tragedy. It's a story of hundreds of union plumbers from across the country traveling to Flint to install water filters for free. It's students at universities all over the Midwest raising funds for water deliveries, and student athletes showing up in Flint to distribute supplies. It's the United Auto Workers and General Motors donating millions. It's money pouring into organizations where people are donating, if you wish, to try to help the kids and the people of Flint. And I'm grateful for everyone who has responded to our request sent out to our campaign. And it's the story of that kindergartner in Wilton, New Hampshire, who lost his first tooth just a few days ago. Tooth Fairy left him $5. I got a dime. I don't know about you. And he said to his mother, I want to give it so those little kids can have water. His mom sat right down and wrote me a letter about it. To me, that's the best of America, and it keeps me going. That sense we are all in this together. We all have vital contributions to make. And that when we come together, all of us, with a sense of shared purpose and shared humanity, we can solve any problem we face. And we can heal any divide. We can build a future that is far, far better than our past. That is my hope for our country. That is my goal for this election. and I promise to keep fighting right alongside all of you every day to make the United States a place where all men and women are treated as equals, just as we are, just as we deserve to be. That is my hope for America. Thank you all so very much.
Go back to the art. Where you going? Take yourself forward. I'm trying to get it off now.
Hey, how are you? Nice to see you. Go up the steps here. Hi, how have you been? I'll follow you, man.
It's got history too. I mean, it's history. Yeah. It's crazy. Can you imagine once you're in the White House, you get the. I won't do that. Hopefully she Richard on the show.
And she gets the very complicated the racial inequality. It's not just inequality. It's an inequality, it's racial inequality. It's social justice, civil justice, racial justice, economic justice. She gets it. And that's the reaction you heard.
I haven't seen it.
He's a columnist for The Guardian. And then he was at Hillary
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
How is it over there?
It's good. I mean, same as always.
I heard somebody on somebody was going to stand up and they were like, yeah, we just called that cleared it all.
Hey John, now see, good seeing you. I'm gonna try to get around this way. But really good seeing you.
I was over there on the other side, but where's all the sound at?
It don't, sometime it ain't here, that don't mean you ain't get it.
Oh, well, I was getting all this.
Okay, switch.
Excuse us.
See, Troy.
Hey, how you doing?
What do you think of the speech?
I thought it was a great speech. He talked about some hard truths and some difficult questions that I think our nation has to face. I think it was a really gutsy speech by presidential candidate, the likes of which I'm not sure we've ever heard before.
In terms of the Supreme Court vacancy, Loretta Lynch has been mentioned, you've been mentioned. Should this position be filled by a current or former Attorney General?
Well, that's going to be up to the president, obviously, but I think the position filled needs to be filled with this president's term. The notion that we will have a Supreme Court with only 8 justices, with all the issues that they have to face, only justices will review or be wrong, inconsistent with our system of government. Focus on Secretary Clinton said, focus on state leadership and not partisanship.
Secretary Clinton suggested that some of that to President Obama making their point based on bigotry or racist tendencies. Do you agree with that statement?
I think there's a concern that President Obama will select somebody who is
Will you be campaigning to Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, I expect I will be. I was in South Carolina. I'll be returning there maybe sometime next week. And now we'll be in other parts of the country as well. I did for President Obama back in 2008.
Do you think the community will be coming out and going like they did with President Obama?
I think so. I think that as people start to understand what is at stake, and what is at stake is the progress that President Obama has made. As people understand that, I think that we will see as we get closer to November, substantial numbers of people getting out there and trying to vote, assuming that the Republicans don't make it too difficult for people to do that, which is most Americans to cast a ballot.
Do you think
Please elaborate on that, and where you go with that.
Well, I mean, if you look at what has happened in states controlled by Republican governors and Republican legislatures, put in place these voter ID laws and restrictions make it difficult for people to cast ballots, all under the name of some anti-voter law. There is a political intent behind those efforts. So people have to be prepared.
Would it help if President Obama just endorsed Hillary now in the primary?
I understand the position that he has. He's the leader of the Democratic Party, so he has to let the process play out. And at an appropriate time, he will, I think, express his opinion about who should be his successor.
Great, thank you.
Thank you all.
Associate Justice holders. I think you'd be great at it.
Mr. Mayor, will you be
Wait, hold on 1 second. We're gonna just let's make sure everyone can actually.
Tell me where you want me. How you doing, sir?
Right here.
Third in the batting order, but first in your heart.
Third in the batting order is a good place to be. Let me say up front, then I'll happily take questions. Hillary spoke with extraordinary passion, and this was one of the bluntest, truest speeches I've ever heard on the reality of race and economics in America. She laid it all out there. She didn't pull any punches. This was real straight talk with this country about the changes we have to make. And I think for progressives all over the country, this is going to attract a lot of energy, a lot of support, because this is exactly what we need to hear a president of the United States say. We need a president who's going to level with us about our history and about the changes we have to make. And she did it not only powerfully and bluntly, she referenced it back to her whole life's journey. And I think this is another thing the American people are going to key into. Someone who heard Marion Wright Edelman as a student and followed that path every year since. That's the kind of leader we need.
Mayor, today the Reverend Sharpton said he's not prepared to endorse Hillary Clinton. Should she be concerned about that? And as someone who also withheld his endorsement for quite a while, would you encourage the Reverend to take a side?
Oh, absolutely. I would encourage him to support it, but I know he's going to look at the situation with his own conscience and in his own timeline. This is the kind of thing I think people need to hear. Her clear, strong voice on the changes we need in this country. There's a lot of frustration in this country. There's a lot of anger about both income inequality and persistent racial disparities. And she is filling in the blanks right now. She's showing people the kind of change that must be achieved. I think it's going to attract a lot more support.
Clinton had enormous support in the African American community. Is it your sense that she has the same level of support, or maybe not as strong?
I think it's early in this campaign, but it's quite clear that African American leaders are supporting her from all over the country. Civil rights leaders are supporting her. Clergy is supporting her. I mean, she's building up support rapidly and intensely. And I think this message today, again, I don't think any president of the United States has said the kinds of things we've heard today. When she walks in the door as president, she will walk in with the most progressive vision on race and economics of any president we've ever had. This message is going to spread today, and I think she's going to gain a lot more support quickly because of it.
How do you get the black community, the blue-collar black community, to get out and vote?
Look, I think it is an excellent question. It relates exactly to what we're seeing this year in general, the anger and frustration people are feeling all over the country about the fact that the game's been rigged and a lot of people have been left behind. People have been left behind because of class, because of race, for so many reasons. I think you energize them by showing a solution, a believable, sharp solution.
Can you first tell us your opinion on Black Lives Matter?
I think Black Lives Matter has contributed a lot to the discussion in this country. I think a lot of the changes that are going to happen in this country because that movement has raised people's consciousness and led to the kind of platform we need for change.
Do you agree with his critique of Hillary's critique of the Bernie Sanders campaign, that it's too single issue focused? He's talking too much about economic inequality, not enough about race and issues like that.
I think it is necessary to talk about income inequality, and Hillary Clinton's been doing that. That's why she wants to raise taxes on the wealthy. That's why she wants to raise the minimum wage and raise benefits like paid sick leave and paid family leave. The Hillary Clinton campaign has been about addressing income inequality from the very beginning with a sharp progressive message. But you've got to talk about race too if you're going to change things in this country. And she's doing that very bluntly and very boldly. And every candidate has to do that, or they're not going to be able to make real change. And they're certainly not going to attract the votes of people who are looking for an honest voice on the reality of race.
Is Bernie Sanders doing that, though?
I haven't seen everything Bernie Sanders has said. I can tell you one thing. Hillary Clinton did it today, and she did it very, very powerfully. And I think it's going to resonate all over the country.
One more, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Norman Graham here with the chair of the NAACP New York State Chapter, Hazel 2. Can you tell us about the speech that...
Well, you know, I've been telling people that rhetoric and reality is two different things. And so what she put down today is reality. What can be done, how it can be done. It's not like we don't have chicken in every pot. Yeah, we got to be prepared for it. And the thing about it, after you prepare, the opportunities have to be there. And there are many barriers. I like that. I like the topic of the speech about barriers. We have loads of barriers. The school system, you can't just lump one thing. You got to look at all the issues we have. When she talked about segregation in public schools, that's a problem in New York. A real problem. It's worse than the South.
Can you tell us some of the NAACP's platform?
The platform, we have 5 game
Okay.
changers.
Yes.
Five game changers. We have health, education, criminal justice, economic development, that is taking housing, takes in education is our main thing, as you know. That's the basic one.
Education and employment.
And employment, okay? And so what our national president did this morning, he also talked to her about the reentry program, about ban the box. We have worked on ban the box. We have it here in New York City. We have it in other parts of the country, but it needs to be a federal mandate.
So are you saying that you're comfortable that what she's saying is not pandering to our community?
That's what I'm saying. And I know, matter of fact, I met Senator Clinton in Arkansas.
Okay.
Yeah, her husband was governor.
Okay.
So they know, I know them personally. Right.
So what do you think of Bernie Sanders and his message?
I think Bernie Sanders got a good message, but it's not real. Some of the things that he's saying, we're not going to tear down Wall Street. Wall Street is in the head of America. Okay, they have some problems, so we need to correct the problems. Like you said, nobody should be so big that they don't obey the law. Right, and so she's right on that issue, that if they misuse it, corruption or whatever, we ought to get them too. Nobody should be above the law.
So criminal justice forums she spoke on, and
Reentry program.
where does NAACP stand on?
That's where we are. Ban the box. Ban the box.
And tell
ban
the people what it means.
That means that when you go for the employment, the first thing shouldn't be on there that you was arrested. Have you been arrested? That ought to be down at the bottom when you're through. And not even talked about at all. It's a cause of what kind of why you've been in the criminal justice system. Some people have been in the criminal justice system because of Rockefeller law. They didn't steal nothing. They're not corrupt. Come on with it.
How are you going to get the blue collar people that don't wear suit and ties but have excellent jobs like these people out here right now that vote that nobody speaks to? How is Hillary Clinton going to reach out?
I think not only Hillary Clinton, I think those of us in leadership have a right to inform our community on issues, educate them. And then, you know what? We are people who have voted. If you know how many black people have been purged off the rolls because they did not go to vote but one time, and that was for Rock. They didn't vote the second time. That's when we got the Tea Party. Let me tell you what I'm telling my people. We are born into politics. Somebody give you a birth certificate and you die in politics. Somebody give you a death certificate, whether they are appointed or they elected.
Thank you, my sister. Thank you.
Even with light bill, okay, the water bill. How come you think the people in Flint is where they are today? Because they didn't participate in government
electoral
politics.
Thank you.
What are your organization or any other?
Here. Norman Graham outside the Schomburg Museum. Hillary Clinton was here. She wooed the crowd. She had a coughing problem, but the crowd loved her, and everybody was adored with her speech. The mayor loved it. Former Attorney General Eric Holder loved it. We're going to see if the black community, if this is enough for her to get the black community's vote, we can get them out here to speak. Norman Graham, live at Schomburg. Back to you, Troy.
Great.